Well, hello and welcome back to The Commonplace. My name is Autumn and it is about time that we do another mother culture video. And so today I'm going to talk about 5 books that you should read before you hit the holiday season. I am, per usual, missing one, but I will put it up on the screen, so it's okay. It's totally fine. There are a lot of things, as always, coming down the pipeline for mothers right now. There will be gift guides galore, which I just had a very merry, happy classical Christmas gift guide episode, and it is 100% not your average gift guide, and so I'm gonna link it above. If you like things like parents review articles about the principles of playing and toys and books, then I think you'll enjoy listening to what I have to say in that one, and hopefully it will give you principles and freedom so that you are not sucked into the idea that everything you must buy for Christmas must be a wooden heirloom carved by a magical fairy in Narnia, because that is kind of what the Instagrams were going to tell you, and they make me grumpy. So we are going to talk about books, because what you actually need right now, besides principles, are ideas, living ideas swirling around in your mind, which is like a hall of mirrors. You can perceive and contemplate them, and that you can be changed by them. You become what you behold. And I want to give you some tremendous ideas to prepare for the Christmas season. Last year I made a video partly entitled Don't Be the White Witch, and that is still my encouragement for moms this Christmas season, this coming Advent. It's a lot of fasting and feasting. We have Christmastide, then we have Epiphany in the West, or Theophany in the East. There's just a lot of stuff coming, and it asks a lot of a mom. And a lot of times the chorus in the motherhood world, well, there are so many ditches, like you must be the perfect Pinterest mother. We know that's not true. Or you must not do anything, only think about yourself. It's time for you to put your hair in a top knot and put your feet up and just take it easy because you deserve this. Also not true. But then there's the middle one that I think is kind of sneaky and also very tricky, which is you do not need to do anything this Christmas season but think about Jesus and make sure your kids think about what really matters. I'm going to debunk that once again with my book choices. So we are going to start with the one that I don't have, which is On the Incarnation by Saint Athanasius. The intro was written by C.S. Lewis in the English translation one. And so the first thing you need to dwell upon before you get to the holiday season is the incarnation. Yes, because it is the thing, but also because it changes how you live. All of a sudden, it very much matters what you do with your body. It matters that God took on flesh. It matters that we know what the God-man looked like, that we can understand that he moved in God's world, that he showed us how to do it, and that he revealed what was already meaningful and powerful and true, but we actually saw it in his embodied self. And so when you think about your children and you think about their bodies and you think about the foods you make or the foods you don't make for part of the season, if you think about the songs, if you think about the feel of your house, the smell of your house, all of the things that touch all the senses of your children, you will understand then that you are touching part of the image bearer, that matter is not icky and it's not lesser, that it's in harmony with the soul. The body and soul are indivisible, so your children must be nourished from both accounts. And reading about the incarnation, one is wild, like it's crazy what we are supposed to be contemplating this season, this upcoming season, but also it should drastically change how you think about serving your family in the Christmas season. And so I will just leave that one there for you to enjoy. It's not a dense read, but it's also not an easy read, so I would get started now. Okay, on to something a little bit lighter. I'm gonna say Little Men by Louisa May Alcott. And fun thing about me, I like to buy old books. This is a thing I do. I like when I find them for just a little bit of money. Like this one was $2. But when I started trying to dog ear the pages, the page would just break off. The whole corner would just come off. And if I open the book too far at one time, it also falls apart. So never fear. I ordered an older copy of Little Men, but it looks like it won't fall apart. And that's what it's like to be in my home library. Okay, Little Men. This is the continuation of Jo March's story. And I have never read this book before, but my friend who has a bunch of boys was like, you should read this, you would love it. The funny thing about having a girl and then boys is that everyone forgets that you have boys. I hear from moms of boys all the time, oh, well, you don't know what it's like to have a house of boys. I have more boys in this house than my one girl, but having the one girl makes people think that you don't know what it's like to have boys, but I do. And this book is a tremendous look at both boys and girls. So if you don't know, Jo, of course, marries a professor. I know, we're all still struggling with the Lori storyline, but she marries the professor, and now I like that. Before, my entire life after reading Little Women, I did not like that she didn't marry Lori. I loved the best friendshipness of them, and I'm sure people who are far more mature than I was when I read it were like, yes, this is right, but I was just devastated in high school that she didn't marry Lori, and I never really got over it until I read Little Men, which is not the point of this video or why I'm telling you to read it. What the point is that here you see a wise woman who is very Charlotte Mason, but also very dedicated to helping these boys bend or form in the right direction without ever making anything about herself. And this is something every mother must learn to do. And I think particularly as you go into the holidays, when there are ample opportunities for things to go wrong, for your children's sins to come up, for their ingratitude to show, for their entitlement to appear. And none of these things need to be overlooked or ignored, because your work, as you will see, Jo March's work, is to produce a harvest worth having in the children in your care. And these kids, these boys, and there are girls in here, these children are as wily and mischievous as every child I know. They do all the things they shouldn't do. They tear their clothes, they break things, they get in fights, they get in squabbles, they steal, they lie. They're very ordinary children. And you can see Jo's disappointment. The kids can see her disappointment. She feels it. She's not like a Stepford wife who's incapable of feeling negative feelings because she's just so positive all the time. It's not that at all. She just rightly understands that her work is to labor diligently and to see these things, to anticipate them, and to be prepared to nourish the boys or the girls with what they need in order to grow in the right direction. This is one of the most inspiring things I've read for motherhood lately, honestly. And as you go into the holiday season, I think one thing I talked about in my gift guide episode is you need to think about the ideas that your children's souls are contemplating, that they're kind of fixed on, and then you need to give gifts that help them turn towards the better things, that help them form the right loves, the right attachments. Because this is uncommon speak, I feel like, in the modern world. You actually can form your children's allegiances and attachments. You're not at the mercy of your kid likes this really lame Disney movie, and so now your whole house has to be filled with it because they just love it and you want to make sure you give them what they like. No, you can show your kids this is worth loving, this is worth your attention, this is not. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I am saying you want a good harvest. And so that's the first part. Understand there's a harvest, and during the season you might see a lot of good and bad pop up, but you are there to do work. Again, the message is you might have to work a little bit harder in the upcoming months, but it's not about you. So I have a tendency to see foibles in my children and wonder what I did wrong. Why are they doing this? Did I not give them the right book? Did I not feed them enough? Were they outside long enough? Did they go to bed too late? Was there sugar in that thing? I'm very quick to turn and focus on myself. Never right. Instead, you need a picture like Jo March so that you don't get bogged down. You don't play victim to your children's disobedience this season. You don't play victim to the work that must be done. Instead, you see this is your work and this is why you are here, and it is separate from you. And as long as you aim towards what is true, good, and beautiful, you can feel content about your efforts, praying that God will grow the rest, but you've planted the right seeds, and then you can enjoy. She delights so hard in these rascally children. They are so dear to her. She wants to be with them. She wants to get a little bit into their mischief, and she wants to have a good time with them. If you remember Jo, of course, she was rather mischievous herself. But she does not get bogged down. She does not play victim to the great number of works and children and disobedience happening in her world. She continues on the path of, to what direction do we aim? I will put all my effort there, and that is all I'm responsible for. I don't know, it's like a deep sigh of relief and a lot of happiness, which everyone can use when they go into a big season of work, which is what's about to happen in the holiday season. So next is The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It is not very long. In fact, this is not just The Christmas Carol. I have other Christmas stories in here, so don't even think it's this big. You can read it aloud to your whole family in a night. And you don't want to be Scrooge. The way you don't want to be the White Witch, you also don't want to be Scrooge. Do not turn everything into utilitarian profit. There's a great quote in Brothers K that I was just trying to pull from my commonplace, wherein a woman realizes that if anything could dissipate her love for humanity, it would be ingratitude, which in short means she's a hired servant. She wants payment immediately. She wants love for love. She wants gratitude when she does anything. And if she doesn't get it, she's upset. She feels dismissed. She feels overlooked. And in that realization, she realizes she actually doesn't love anyone, because to love is to not measure through utilitarian efforts. It's to not measure with repayment. It's not to even think of people as owing you something. I'm gonna link a video that my friends Jess and Josh Helton made for Mother's Day, but Jess wrote a beautiful like script over the also beautiful video that Josh made, but about when you wake up, will you let your love basically be a gift to your children, or will you let them see that it's a burden to you? Any ask of Scrooge, he makes sure you feel the weight of the burden. It's like when you have a kid who comes up to you and they're like kind of nervous to be like, well, Mom, do you mind making me this thing or helping me? That just shows that you've probably let on a little too often that you are feeling burdened by the life around you. And that's cold and it hurts and it turns everything into a very bleak house and it makes Christmas anything but, right? It's always winter and never Christmas. And Scrooge goes through a wonderful transformation, one that I think all hearts to some degree must do to learn how to pour out for others and to find that the joy is actually in serving and not in keeping accounts and expecting payment. And I know it can be very tricky for us moms when we do so much behind the scenes, or we seem to be working on a harder pace this time of year, to feel like we're not getting what is due, to start looking at everyone as a list, or an accounts list rather. Here's how much I've put on, how much have you put on? We don't want to do that. It really steals the spirit of the season. So it's a very quick read. You could read it with everyone. I plan to read it aloud with my husband this year. So enjoy not being Scrooge. So the next one is The Dean's Watch by Elizabeth Goudge. Now, I have made a video before in Common House about the places that I put my money to learn from, because yes, I 100% have favorite writers and thinkers, and I like to support their work, and I also like to learn from them in their more like closed spaces. And one of those is Tish Oxenreider's, also called The Commonplace, and she does book chats every so often. And I have to be very careful not to scroll them because I will want to buy all of the books. But I did actually make a purchase off one comment. I think she also has a Substack, so I'm gonna double check this. I'll put it in the comments below, but I think it's Dixie Lane Dillon or Dixie Dillon Lane, something like that. I will make sure that I get it right below in case she has a Substack and you can follow her. But she mentioned that for the fall, Elizabeth Goudge would be a great read. And I've heard her name, but the way she described that the world that she creates kind of mirrors the world of the soul, that there has to be this transformation, this journey, this struggle between ideals and reality, all things I'm very into. And so I messaged or I commented on her post and asked, which one would you recommend for a first read? And she gave me two options, and I chose The Dean's Watch. And this was the best book I read this year. I loved it. There are many times where I'm trying to explain what a sacramental view of the world is, and I think that's very important all the time, but particularly it's a great thing to cultivate during Advent and Christmastide, where you see that the things around us also participate in and point to the larger reality, which is God. With reality being God himself, so in as much as we participate in God, we participate in reality, which I know starts to sound a little weird, but it's very hard. That's why it's hard. It sounds weird. It's difficult to explain intellectually, rationally, because it's mysterious. It's not. This book is the single best picture of a sacramental view of the world I have ever read. I cried during the first chapter about Isaac, a clockmaker. It was amazing. And I found that as I was reading it, every time I had an empty moment in my own mind, I would race to these characters. I would race to the story. I was just constantly thinking about it. It was pulling my attention. It was so well done. And it also takes place during Advent. So I think it would be a tremendous read before the holidays, or even just during the holidays as you get started here in the next couple of weeks, to really cultivate a view of the world in which the things you do, making a sandwich cheerfully, actually matter eternally, actually matter in something greater. That there is no mere mortal in your house, so there is nothing unseen by God, there's nothing unused by him. But in order to see it, to glimpse what it could be like, how delightful it could be to see the world with a sacramental view, which is very hard to do in the modern world. We're really downstream from some things that kind of destroy the organs and which we still demand the function of in order to have a sacramental view. This book might just bring our hearts back to life. It might just do it. So The Dean's Watch, Elizabeth Goudge. #1 recommendation out of all of them, probably. And then lastly, what do you think it's gonna be? Yeah, you're right. It's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. My whole Christmas shtick started about 2 years ago because I kept wanting to yell, "Don't be the White Witch." I felt like everything, everywhere I saw was basically, come be the White Witch. Don't do anything. Like, don't make your house warm. Don't feel like you have to make it smell good because you're baking all the time. Don't make it feel like you have more stories to go find, more picture books to track down, more forts to build, more messes to clean up. just really temper yourself and just make sure you get the main thing. And that's just the thinking thing. It's never just the thinking thing. We know that. The thinking things are the disembodied brains in Madeleine L'Engle. They're the white witches who just want to be obeyed without any sort of cheer or joy or love. It's more than the thinking thing. And of course, it's winter in the wardrobe, right? It's snowing. Father Christmas makes an appearance. As much as Tolkien hated that. And I think this is just a great one to pull your kids in with and enjoy. And every time you see the White Witch, take note so that you do not make your home feel like it is always winter and never Christmas. Happy reading, happy holiday working, and happy joy and light to you and yours.